Hello.
How are
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Not too bad, apart from a slight technical issue that I forgot to charge pretty much all of my devices,
Mm,
and I've just come to realize.
well, yeah, it's like one of the things in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. How
No
are you?
battery, no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so are you looking for a charger or will we lose you in the middle?
No, 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 no. I think we're good to go. I
Oh, that's
will
amazing.
send out a tweet.
Yeah, we do have quite a lot of amazing and interesting topics
Yeah,
to discuss
absolutely.
today.
Give us a breakdown on what we're going to be covering.
Okay, so we will start with a few hot stories of this week, and one is actually from like basically a couple of hours ago. And then we're going to talk quite a lot about BEAM plans for like the second half of this year. And we're going to talk a lot about kind of various different technologies for Ethereum, essentially, but related to what we are planning. We're going to talk about rollups and ZK and sidechains and a lot more. And I hope to kind of present various options that we have and analyze. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can ask them. And also, of course, we will remind everyone to upgrade their wallets because the is coming pretty soon. And also, we're going to brag a little bit about our new testing network, which is and the new applications that were deployed there. Yeah, so that's the kind of the high level overview of tonight.
Wicked. I mean, it's been a very eventful week or so in crypto, and I'm actually excited to ask some questions and learn more about like the L2 solutions and the trade-off between L2s and sidechains and all of this.
Terrific. So let's start with the first story, which is also happens to be the hottest story as it unfolded during the day and kind of came to our awareness. And we discussed it in the afternoon, and actually, since then, things changed. And what we're talking about, obviously, is what was happening with Solend, which is the lending protocol on Solana.
Yeah,
You probably heard about this one.
I've been watching it a little bit due to like over the last week. There's been a lot of kind of action on chain with some big positions that have overhanging debt and some liquidations happening and maybe not happening. Solend, I've seen a little bit of discussion about, but I don't know exactly what's going on more recently.
So let me bring you up to speed then.
Yeah, sounds good.
So first of all, as we all know, during the bear market, things that let's say used to work somehow during the bull market suddenly kind of stop working, and this is when all of the shit kind of comes up, right? So
Yeah,
it's very easy to pretend that you have, working decentralized, properly controlled when everything goes up. And what we're witnessing now is kind of shit show galore, all over the place. And this story is no exception. So Solent is a lending protocol on Solana, and I'm not familiar with all of the details, so I'll just present the facts that I know. There was a very big position, or there is a very big position of about 160 million, I think it was, that could have caused cascade liquidations if this position was liquidated. And the so like the protocol decided that it's kind of something they would rather avoid. And the way they decide to implement this is to have a vote, a community to take over this position basically and prevent the liquidation. So obviously, it's a DAO, so you need a vote, and they had a vote. It was kind of very quickly and urgently arranged. I think the number I heard was like 6 to vote,
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
yeah,
It was really only 6 hours to vote, and apparently the website for voting was up for like half of it.
oh man. Yeah, so the vote passed something like 1.5 million, like not votes, but tokens to like 30,000, and like 1 million of those tokens came from a single account.
Okay.
Yeah, so being decentralized, they called that chief decentralization thing, and he voted. And
Yeah.
as a result, they kind of liquidated this position OTC, and this like didn't cause or is not supposed to cause any issues. But obviously, it kind of long term did, in my opinion, much more damage because it's very, very clear that there is nothing decentralized protocol right now.
Yeah.
And like the strange thing is that I didn't see any comment from the whale, right? So like if it was my position, I would probably said something on Twitter, but I don't know exactly like the details who this was or what position this was about. But like if this was something adversarial to this person, like in my opinion, it's kind of something worth suing about. And obviously, somebody with 160 million in this position has the money to do so because it's kind of completely unacceptable behavior
Yeah.
um, for a protocol that claims to be decentralized.
It's crazy, right? So what are they've decided that they will take like the collateral that the loan was taken against. They'll just like confiscate it or
No, they didn't confiscate it, but they, uh, I think, deleveraged it somewhat in some kind of off-chain way. Like I'm not 100% sure, like what was or what would be the damage to this specific position, and maybe there was none. But the problem here is with the principle of the thing, right? So
yeah.
you put your money in some protocol which is supposed to be decentralized, and then there is this obviously fake vote. So it's kind of uh, you know the way they did it was so obvious and childish in a way, right? So, oh, let's have a vote. Oh, we voted and everybody agreed, although it was like 3 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's completely, in my opinion, unprofessional in many ways.
Absolutely.
And even, you know what? So probably maybe they didn't know who this person was, but at least, I don't know, there were so many different ways of doing that, like reaching out, like getting to some agreement, even if you are centralized.
Yeah.
But this fake kind of DAO operation is like very, you know, long term.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean like it shouldn't be possible to do such a thing if it's decentralized.
Absolutely. So some people said, okay, maybe like, how do we know, right? How do you know, like, when you put your money into some protocol, how actually decentralized it is, like, who is controlling it? And it's a great question. And one of the tweets that kind of tried to respond to that said maybe there should be regulation about it. And in my opinion, this is not the way to go. So, like, you cannot really rely on regulation to tell you how decentralized the protocol is. Instead, what you should be able to gather is as much information as possible. Just like you have an audit in a way, right? For the code of the protocol, you should be able to have some kind of audit or more info or the ability to know more about the governance structure of this thing before you commit your money, especially in such large amounts.
Yeah.
And then at least you will be aware that there is such possibility, because today it's the fear of liquidation, and tomorrow it's the fear of something other bad happening, and you never know. It's a slippery slope. You never know what they will decide next.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that like it's very difficult to kind of it's a bear market, people are losing money, and but on the other hand, I think there is a lot of um, positive in the fact that these bad elements they get kind of discovered, and then we have the opportunity to improve things and to understand like what is working, what is not working, like how things go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Like under when the markets are kind of going down fairly heavily, everything gets a good stress test. I mean, we saw it like in the 2018, 2019, even with protocols like Maker and this kind of stuff, a lot more pressure on like the how the systems are working.
Absolutely. Like another story, for example, from this week with Arrow Capital, which is a little bit different because we're talking about centralized here.
Yeah.
And this is, for example, something that's, in my opinion, clearly criminal behavior because they kind of used clients' funds to for their own purposes, positions, and then when things kind of started rolling down the hill, they disappeared and they didn't answer to people and investors, and like this is like a more classic example, I would say, of something that like let's say it's not directly related to DeFi because we're talking about kind of more standard type of organization that's just managing other people for holding their funds. But it also teaches us a lot about the role of custodian services. Like, what does it mean when you are in control of your funds because you hold the keys or not, and which kind of bad things you can expect from different types of organizations.
Yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned, it's more similar to like the traditional markets. And I mean, we do see similar stuff in banking and traditional finance that happened with 3AC. It's not like I mean, a lot of people were saying like, how could people blow up and this kind of thing? But I mean, it's happened with like countless traditional firms and this kind of stuff that are trading stocks and taking on a lot of debt and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's definitely like quite a lot, or like at least we saw many examples of such things happening in the past. One of my favorite books on this subject, it's called How Genius: The Rise and Fall of LTCM, and it tells a story about this fund called Long-Term Capital Management. I think it was the years like 93 to 97, something like this. And it was a fund which was founded like by very well-known economists, some of them Nobel Prize winners and like very experienced traders. And for the first 3 years, they did absolutely amazing profits. And then on the fourth year, which was I think 1997, they completely blew up, and they blew up so spectacularly that the whole Wall Street should have kind of come together to save them, because otherwise it would have been the cascade liquidation, but in the traditional world and in much larger amounts. And they blew like through like several $billion in a couple of weeks. And that was because at that point, Russia defaulted on their debts in rubles, and then like everybody kind of flew to safety and dumped everything they held. And yeah, so this is like a classic example of something like this happening before everything else. And it's just one example. The book is, by the way, exceptionally well written. And it's like it reads like a kind of detective story, right? It tells you about all the characters and how things develop. Absolutely amazing stuff. And uh, yeah, so the ability at that point to come to the rescue of that company, like the Fed came together, like they put a lot of government money, and then we saw something similar happen in 2008 when there was a crisis in the market, like for mortgages in the United States, and then also kind of they printed some money to help them out. Yeah, like it happens all the time. Absolutely.
Yeah, although it and actually maybe that happens this case, but there was talk about like 3AC being bailed out or like bought out, and I guess this is because if I mean I'm not massively familiar, but as I understand it, they have many like investment in non-liquid assets like Starkware and a bunch of tokens and this kind of stuff. So maybe someone kind of buys out all their assets and this kind of stuff, but nothing like the LTCM situation where a bunch of Wall Street banks and this kind of stuff sort of gave them a bailout.
Yeah, so obviously, one of the ideas of crypto and Bitcoin is to kind of avoid, let's say, in some aspects, kind of over regulation or over involvement by government, and this kind of idea that if you are not, healthy enough, you should, go down, you should disappear, and then there is this too big to fail, like can go broke, and everyone kind of disappear. And what about like largest banks and stuff like that? So yeah, there is a lot of very nuanced polemics about that, right? There is a lot of things that to consider, and there is no clear-cut answer, like whether it's like good soon or not. But there is a very, in my opinion, there is a very important point here about the risk management. And the risk management is very difficult to do, like in finance in general. This is, by the way, one of the points that this book also makes. And whoever like read The Black Swan by Nicholas Taleb, know his opinion on the subject, like how today's mathematics that are used to calculate risk and try to evaluate which amounts of funds should be kept, and how you can measure the volatility of your positions, like that math is kind of outdated. It is based on some of the like not necessarily correct assumptions. Also, a very recommended book, by the way. But in my opinion, in DeFi, the situation is even worse because I think that we don't even have enough tools today to try to monitor and measure the positions. This is becomes very apparent when there are when you need to be kind of aware of what is happening almost minute by minute and be able to respond to that, either by covering your position, like closing it, or maybe adding additional collateral. And I think that today, in most cases, DeFi doesn't even have those tools. Like if you're using, I don't know, Zerion or Zapper or like similar tools, they show you what you have, but you still don't necessarily have the tools to understand what's happening in real time and respond to that. So this is definitely also one of the areas that will improve as a result, because large organizations will understand that it probably will not work to just blindly put a long position for all your money and hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny you should say about the tools, like it is very, at least for me, if I ever have any like stuff and do whatever, I'm always getting lost as to where it is and what it's looking like and how it's performing and stuff. Like the Zapper and DBank and these kind of things give a reasonable like overall still snapshot, but no real good kind of insight into what's happening. And also with like all of these liquidations and stuff, I, I was in one Telegram group of people that I consider like heavily involved in DeFi and all this stuff, and no one could figure out how to action some of the liquidations that weren't getting picked up by bots, and and I thought this was kind of funny.
Uh, it is, but in a way, it's also very sad
Yeah.
because so there was another story this week. I don't know if you heard about it. There was a very interesting exploit in one of the protocols where the attacker used a flash loan to tilt some pool. There was a pool, and this pool was used as an oracle for another protocol. And there is this kind of practice because there are two types of oracles. There are centralized oracles, obviously, but there are also oracles that are based on pools. So let's say there is some price in the pool, and this price is used as an external input to another protocol. So the attacker kind of took advantage of the fact that there was low liquidity in that pool. So he took a flash loan, he tilted the oracle, and then he exploited that in another protocol, and all that was within one single transaction on Ethereum.
Okay. Was this?
So
I've forgotten the name. I think I saw this, and it's not the first time. If I'm remembering right, it's not the first time that such an attack on that particular protocol had taken place as well.
Maybe I don't know, but I was like very interested in the mechanism because, as you know, we're kind of researching now like all kinds of DeFi mechanisms to implement them all. And
Absolutely.
the point here that is like it's not like in regular DeFi, regular fire, you have somebody human watching your back in a way. Here, you need to not just know like what your position is, but also how the protocol works within what it is influenced by. And it's very, very difficult to do. It's like very complicated, and there is a lot of connections between different protocols, as we can see now. Like sometimes you like, happen, oh, it's because there was low liquidity, so somebody took advantage of that, and then this led like this is very non-trivial correlations that have they're happening all over the place.
Yeah, like a house of cards.
Yeah. I saw a tweet about that. It's like DeFi blocks versus CeFi dominoes.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving on. So, one of the very important stories this week, obviously, is that Elon Musk said he to continue to support Dogecoin.
yep. As is,
Um,
as makes perfect sense, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Despite like 200, what was it? Like
Yeah,
$200 lawsuit?
$238 billion or something like this.
Unbelievable. Um, yeah, so obviously, I don't know anything about Dogecoin, and I don't think it's the point. But the point is like, even if it's Elon Musk, like, come on, people, check the basics, check the fundamentals, do your research.
Yeah.
Don't buy things just because Elon said so, and then come to him, claiming billions of dollars in damages.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is something that I see more and more, like, no offense to our American listeners, but especially out of like America, it's a very like ingrained in their culture to like jump at suing people. I don't get it. Where I come from, you can sue companies, but you can't sue individuals, I think.
Maybe it was SpaceX that is, I don't know.
Yeah, so
Um, yeah, I tried to sue once. It didn't go very well, and I kind of stopped them. It was a company, though. It was Apple representative in Israel that fixed my laptop for like 2 months instead of 2 weeks.
oh god.
Uh, yeah, but no, it didn't go well. I was not compensated for any of that.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so now I just develop stuff. I stopped suing people.
yeah.
Um, okay, so I think like some other interesting or like moderately interesting news about miners. Like kind of people started calculating when exactly will be the point where like some of the mining equipment used to mine Bitcoin today is going to become unprofitable and probably will be shut down, and how exactly it's going to affect, the overall difficulty of the network. There was some strange DDoS attack threat against. I don't know much about that. Aztec finally launched and did some transactions, and I think speaking of Aztec, we should transition to our main story tonight, which is Beam plans in the near future, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. Over the last couple of years, we've built on Beam a very nice infrastructure for decentralized finance. We have the virtual machine, we have smart contract language. We integrated all that into our wallets. We created a decentralized, like truly decentralized marketplace for DeFi applications that run on your machine inside your wallet. You don't need to rely on Infura like you do if you're using MetaMask or any other centralized website if you're using almost all of the applications. So we've kind of did a lot of work to make this confidential possible. And now we're at the point where we're starting to actually roll out the applications. and the infrastructure for the applications like the oracles and the bridges, which is like kind of the cornerstone of bringing liquidity to the network. And it's all very good, and this is going like very well. After the hard fork, we will start rolling out these applications with our partners, and it's going to be very nice. However, when we take a look at the a little bit longer term, like 6 months or so and beyond, we have several options. And by the way, like feel free to jump in and ask questions and contribute. So the first option is to continue as is. And we do see examples of ecosystems such as Solana, for example, which are not EVM compatible, and they develop very well like outside this kind of decentralization issue. But in general, we see that they have made an ecosystem applications, and it works very well. We can go this way, so it's definitely an option on the table. But this way has some downsides. Like we need to be able to bring more developers to create better documentation, development tools, and we're not very rich protocol, so we don't have like a lot of money to throw into the community fund and give huge bounties. So it will be difficult and time consuming. Another option is to try and create some kind of better integration with one of the leading chains, let's say EVM compatible if we're talking about like Ethereum, Polygon, and try to bring our confidentiality and our kind of benefits that you get from using Beam to the users of those chains specifically, try to integrate better. So one step that we already did into this direction is we developed the bridges. Before that, we developed the atomic swaps, and now we develop the bridges for Ethereum and or EVM chains. And when we look at the, let's say, the landscape of privacy on Ethereum, there are two kind of like two and a half major types of players in this field. And I would like to talk about it and kind of describe what we have today as privacy on EVM chains, on Ethereum specifically, and try to understand where Beam fits in and where our proposed solutions fits in. Like obviously, all of these things are going to be described in like more details as we go along, and we will be voting on that in the DAO. But just to understand like where we stand today, and Aztec is like one of the examples of that. One of the approaches, which is called rollups, right? So rollups were initially created for scalability issues. When you need to send more transactions that the native layer 1 network can consume. The idea of rollups is to take a lot of transactions, pack them together, and then roll up, which is where the name comes from, the accumulated state onto the network using a specific contract. And types of rollups, there are optimistic rollups, which say something like, listen, we will take all of these transactions, we will roll them up, and in most cases it will be okay. But however, if you do like some problem with that, you can create a dispute. You can send a transaction saying, listen, I think there was a problem with the rollup. And then we will employ the algorithms to make sure that actually the rollup was or was not okay. And then we will roll it back, and whoever created this bad transaction will suffer like a penalty, and that's how we incentivize people to stay honest. So this is the optimistic. It's effective, it's good, but it usually takes time because you always need to like leave enough amount of time for people to react, not like the vote that like should go within 6 hours. Usually it takes a week, right? So when you move funds out of optimistic rollup layer 2, it takes a week because somebody can, within this week, say, wait a minute, I object, there was a problem. So this is kind of the downside, but the upside is that it's very cheap. It's very cheap because if everybody is honest, there are no additional verifications, and the rollup goes through. The second type of rollups is called ZK rollups, because what they're doing is taking the aggregate of those transactions, and then creating a knowledge proof. Indeed, the accumulated result of all of those transactions is exactly the same as each one of those transactions taken individually. And in this case, there is no need for anyone to dispute, because this proof could not have been created if all of these transactions were not kind of properly structured.
So does this mean that if you're bridging, for example, from a ZK rollup back to the main chain, then there's not such a big kind of delay?
Yes. Okay. Yes. But this approach also has some limitations, and these limitations have to do with the zero knowledge technology itself. So the first issue, as like often happens with zero knowledge, some of the most efficient zero knowledge implementations, such as ZK snarks, they have a trusted setup. And also, it's not a generic kind of like one fits all algorithm. So it needs to be for specific applications. And this means that you cannot create like one zero knowledge proof to cover all cases. They need to be created individually. So currently there are several companies that are doing for many years research and implementation of such mechanisms. Starkware is one of them. There is also this zk.money. What's the name of the protocol? Sync. ZK Sync, it's called.
ZK Sync, yeah.
Yeah, and they use kind of different types of zero knowledge proofs, each with their own kind of limitations. And as a result, like you get privacy in both cases. So even though those solutions are initially created to solve the problem with scalability, you also get some privacy in each case. And if you're using, in addition, you're also using ZK for the privacy of the transaction, you basically get this kind of layer 2 privacy on Ethereum.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is exactly what Aztec is doing. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a question. My first question. So with this, what you mentioned, like Aztec is using these ZK rollups and also using them for privacy. Is this just like transact, or is there more privacy to it? I don't know.
Yeah. So this is exactly the point. It's as far as I know, it's mostly transactional privacy, which means that you can send ERC20 tokens, and also like the NFTs, which are ERC721 and ERC1155. But you cannot like use DeFi protocols out of the box.
Okay. Yeah.
So for example, I want to send you something like with privacy, so I can send you tokens, but I cannot like create a private position within, let's say, Uniswap.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So this is kind of the ZK like rollup approach, and once again, like in order to create the proof itself, it requires very powerful machines with a lot of memory and a lot of processing, and it's not something that can easily work on the phone or like even I don't know on most like laptops. So you need like this centralized or body, but there are kind of mechanisms to reduce decentralization, because you can always verify that all of the transactions sent were actually included in the proof. So that's possible, right? But you still need to be able to calculate that. So it's not kind of a versatile solution that you can open your phone and then like, you know, create a zero knowledge proof that you're doing something. It requires certain specific architecture. And also this technology is relatively new. It's being developed for many years by the top scientists in the field. Very, very complicated stuff. And this is kind of one of the biggest hopes, I think, right now for Ethereum in general, both in terms of scalability and privacy. This is one of the directions that they put a lot of effort on, supported through Ethereum Foundation, and it's a big thing. Like it's moving forward. So the other approach is to create a sidechain. And the sidechain is different in a way that you have a separate blockchain, which is bridged somehow in more or less native way. That instead of moving like your funds into the layer two contract, you move it to a different chain, and then you have some additional capabilities, in our case, privacy. So let's say if we wanted to have a Beam sidechain that would bridge easily to Ethereum and be able to run all the same applications, we will probably do something similar to what Polygon did, right? Polygon is this kind of layer two solution in a way, because it has proof consensus, it has EVM support, and they do this kind of um, periodic checkpoints on Ethereum. So obviously, the network that is going to be a sidechain is going to be weaker in terms of consensus than the main chain, and this is one of the key reasons why I see layer two solutions, because they don't affect the strengths of the consensus. Right, you're using the same consensus essentially, which is better.
Yep.
But if you're moving to a side chain and you're doing this kind of periodic checkpoints, you can try to simulate or take advantage of some of the strengths of the original chain and still get more functionality. So when we're talking about Beam sidechain, we're talking about taking Beam, creating a new chain which is connected both to the Beam mainnet and to Ethereum, having some different consensus to run it, let's say proof of stake for kind of performance sake, and also adding EVM support so that the same applications that are currently working on Ethereum can also run on this sidechain.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So these are the two kind of main different approaches. Before I move on to tell a small story, a couple of years ago, there was a project called Ethereum 9.75. Have you heard about it?
I have. This was I remember it. I remember seeing about it around like a little bit after being launched, and it was working on making I don't know if a sidechain or a layer two or what, but involving like Mimblewimble transactions for Ethereum. Is
Yes,
that right?
exactly. So it was an attempt to create a layer two rollup using Mimblewimble. And
Nice.
yeah, I have recently spoken with the founder of the protocol because this project specifically was kind of abandoned, and its founder moved to a different project, which is called Zkopru, Zkopru. And it's more like zero knowledge rollups. So Nimblewimble got lost in transition. So I wanted to ask why they decided to abandon Nimblewimble. What was the issue? So it was kind of very interesting to know these things, like when we are deciding how to implement our solution. And it was a very great, like, very nice discussion. We talked about and the reason they abandoned Mimblewimble was because of two things. First of all, interactivity, because back in the day, there was no native solutions that kind of related to Mimblewimble like we have today with Lilantos. And the second one was beauty. So these were the two main reasons why Mimblewimble was not good enough at the time to create these kind of non-interactive rollups. So we did solve both of these issues with the addition of Lilantos. So maybe, I don't know, maybe now there is like kind of a reason to re-examine or reevaluate these approaches, and we will try to do that. And now they're focusing on zero knowledge, and once again, zero knowledge has all of these kind of problems and issues. But still, it may be interesting to look into that again and see if now, like with the new things we know about Mimblewimble and the improvements that we have made, it might be possible to create not zero, to create rollups using it. No, we will have to see. But in any case, it was very kind of interesting to see how technology develops over a few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's so much, I mean, especially in like the last 4 or 5 years, the amount of stuff that's come out and like oh god, I can't even say it. The zero knowledge spaces has been pretty amazing.
Both of those companies, they work for quite a lot of years. I think Starkware was established in 2018,
Yep.
and the other one 2019. So it's like quite a lot of time and money and resources and great scientists that are working there. So it's definitely not a simple thing to do. Yeah, so this is kind of one thing that we're kind of trying to research. The other one is to how to take advantage of the fact that right now Beam is the only confidential blockchain with smart contracts. Um, because one of the things that rollups come to do is to take the computation off chain. So when you are sending a transaction, um, each and every node in the system needs to perform these calculations and computations in their virtual machine and come to the same result and then verify it. So when you're talking about like, I don't know, thousands transactions per second, it's like very difficult to do on large scale. So when you're doing the off chain, you kind of say, listen, we will calculate the result and we will prove its correctness. All you need to do as the nodes of the chain is to verify that this proof was actually constructed properly. And this is kind of the cheaper part of the operation. So this is the idea. Now, we do have our own virtual machine on confidential blockchain. And like once again, we're not trying to solve scalability, we're trying to solve privacy, right? With decent scalability. And
Yep.
for the privacy, you do need, like we have in Beam, this ability to create confidential transactions. We have, and we have also confidential assets. We have the ability to run applications that still preserve the privacy of your accounts. And maybe there is some way to combine that and create some kind of, uh, mechanism that allows you to perform some of the operations, maybe not all of them, in a way that will preserve your privacy, and then roll it up onto Ethereum or something like that. So this is kind of the different directions that we're trying to look at this problem or this um, idea how to combine what we have today with like the issue of Ethereum privacy.
Yeah. And I like personally, I think this approach is really beneficial for Beam and the community and this kind of stuff in terms of growth. Like, very, and also like one of the things we've mentioned many times and talked about often is like powered by Beam and providing privacy not only to the Beam community, but like to the Ethereum community or to Solana community or whatever. And I think that this like it's becoming more and more clear every day with how crazy the world's getting that privacy is only going to become more important, especially in fun and this kind of stuff. Excuse me. So I think it's a very exciting approach for growing.
No, I totally agree. Now, there was this, I don't remember exactly who said it, but like how the fact that you know exactly who is about it, how does it affect the market?
Yeah, yeah, and I saw I saw many discussions like over the last couple of days about this because one of the big positions I don't know who it was or whatever it came very close to getting liquidated a couple of times, and the only reason it didn't is because the Chainlink Oracle has some delay or something like this, and the price just went up before the liquidation.
Hmm.
Uh, and these people were saying like, is this kind of looming liquidation there on purpose to try and manipulate or whatever prices down? And I mean, the fact that people are even talking about it, it's likely influencing many people in the kind of consciousness of the crowd, and how they're kind of acting in the market as well.
Yeah, because imagine like you see, let's say you see some position on like three different protocols, like positions about to be liquidated, right? So it's one thing, and now that you know that all of these positions belong to the same organization, say,
Yeah.
it's a completely different thing, right? You say, oh, these guys are about to get screwed. Let's let's tweet about that. Let's create some panic. Let's
Yeah, yeah. Lots of this, like some doom posting and rumors flying and spreading of fear and this kind of stuff.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's definitely a huge huge point. So I think what will happen in the coming. So first of all, let's like we're talking about like a several months time. It's not something that will happen tomorrow. But from like this point when the fork happens, most of the things that will commence is first of all rollout of the existing and building applications that we already have in progress. So none of these roadmap changes. This is still our roadmap as we discussed many times and announced. All of the DeFi building blocks will be there. But when we look at the kind of bigger picture, and it's very important to receive the feedback from our community about this, and we will talk about it more in all the channels that we have, and we really want to uh, you know to do this right? Because this is kind of the uh, one of the future directions that we're taking. Um, is to see how we can build something that will work with Ethereum or with Ethereum kind of Polygon or other like layer two solutions. Um, yeah, so this is like what is going to happen. Um, by the way, the DAppNet. So first of all, upgrade your wallets, and I will say it again at the end. But the DAppNet is live, and you can go to our website, and there is this kind of join menu, and we will change it a little bit soon. But right now it's a little bit hidden. You can download the DAppNet wallet and play with the latest and greatest applications. We already have the version 2 of our NFT gallery there, so you can play with that. We have the voting up there, and soon we will also release the BANS, which is the Beam Anonymous Naming Service.
Nice.
And it's supposed to be, yeah, it's supposed to be the kind of cutting edge, really, really raw stuff. So if you will be first to experience those applications before they go to mainnet, I think it's nice. So do that and provide comments and feedbacks and criticism and everything because this is our way to improve stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very lazy, but I'm yet to download the DAppNet wallet, but I'm going to do so after this call.
I think you're gonna love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like this is there was a question in the group chat on Telegram. I read it out and then I give my kind of opinion on it. This is from Joe S, which funnily enough is the same name as my father. Anyway, the
Hmm.
question the question is, why do you think demand for Beam will increase long term? Many coins will die. Why will Beam survive and thrive? Like for me, a massive part of Beam's kind of bolstering up and surviving and like growing is going to be these applications, from like the band's naming service to the like on-chain DAO, and especially the stablecoin with privacy and also the decentralized exchanges like this. And we saw this kind of through the last cycle that many of the ecosystems that were having like dApps running on them were far more, I don't have any numbers, but they had far more like growth, and far more users than, for instance, something like Litecoin or something that was more just aimed at like transaction thing. So my thought is that once we all download the DAppNet wallet, play around, and when these dApps are going live on mainnet, I think this will be a huge like selling point for them.
Um, Definitely, I can provide my version of this answer. So everybody's now saying like how bear market is a great time to build. Um, we have started at 2018. It was March, and Bitcoin was like $3,000 at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we lived all the way through seeing the Bitcoin go to $60,000, and now we're back at $19,000. So all of that time we've been building a lot of things, and like I don't know how this sounds, but I'm really proud of what we did and what we achieved. We took a great protocol, which was Mimblewimble, and improved it a lot and created a lot of stuff. So um, the thing is, we don't care. We will continue building. We have a roadmap. I don't know who is going to die. By the way, much fewer coins really died than probably they should. You know.
Also want to back that up. Like everyone always talks about coins dying, but for the amount of coins that simply do nothing and this kind of stuff, I mean, not that many coins die.
Yeah, yeah. Like unless you I don't know rug pull or you disappear, but I will not name names. But anyway, we will continue. We will continue building, and I think we have a good plan. I think
Yeah,
our execution so far was amazing, and I think it's about finding a good product market fit in terms of yeah, we have privacy, we have the best privacy like we could have built need to find a great way to kind of apply it correctly, and we are working on that. So yeah, like, I don't think Beam is going to die anytime soon. But once again, so far we have developed great technology, and now we're moving to the application part, which is definitely going to be fun. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So with that, unless we have questions,
Yeah, we will start to wrap up shortly, but are there any questions from the crowd?
I guess not. I hope it's because people are updating the app wallet right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, a reminder, Alex has mentioned a couple of times, the hard fork is very fastly approaching. Which date is that?
I think it was announced like a 24th, according to our calculations.
Cool. So
Yeah.
if you haven't already updated your desktop wallets, and also mobile wallet is now available with the 7.0 release, as after the hard fork, you'll need these to access your funds and this kind of thing. So better to get onto it now, in fact.
Yep. Absolutely. So with that, we wish you a great time of day that you're having, and we will see you next week as usual, the same time. And in between, we're always available on Twitter and Telegram and anywhere else.
Absolutely. Bid you farewell. Stay safe and see you all soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alex.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.